Hello, this is Bobby on Compound TV Repair with a video today for solving a problem with the power supply board for Sony, let me see which model is that on my monitor, KDL-40EX400 and KDL-40EX500. The model of the power supply board is APS-254. As you may be able to see here, or the Sony part number for it is 147428211, and we're a component level repairer. A lot of local TV repair technicians in the area bring us boards. Some TV repair centers from around the country send us boards. We don't always actually have the whole TV here. Sometimes we do, of course, but in this case, a local TV repair guy brought us the board suspecting that it doesn't work. And I cannot tell you what are the failure symptoms of the TV because I have never seen it in the TV, but I can tell you that it's a relatively simple power supply board, and my guess is that the TV was responding to a power on command to no avail. That is, the board does have standby power, which can be measured as 3.3 volts on this connector. That would be the very first pin here. You can see 3.3 volts. So if you measure between that pin and ground, which is the most common, that usually the track that is connecting with a metal chassis, that is ground, or you can pick ground on the connector itself. This would be ground. This would be ground. You can find ground here on one of the labels. All those pins will be ground. So there is 3.3 volts. But when the board is told by the main board to turn on, it doesn't do anything. There was no response. And the board is told to turn on by passing those 3.3 volts from the standby. It's actually easier to see it from here. The 3.3 volts that are on the first pin, as you can see, those can be jumped to the third pin left to right, which has power on. And when that happens, the board should be turning on the rest of the voltages by basically energizing two things in a row. There's a power factor correction circuit here, which raises the input voltage on this transformer from 160 to about 380 to 400. This is a standard PFC, part of the PFC, and then the driver for this transformer, which generates the rest of the output voltages, is also activated, and this 24 volts appear here. So the problem with that board that was given to us was that when we jump 3.3 to power on, nothing was happening. When we troubleshooted the board, it comes down to those three optocouples here, and they're very conveniently labeled. What happens, and what is very common in power supply boards, is when the external world, usually normally the main board in the TV, tells the power supply to activate, what it does is it sends 3.3 volts on the power on signal, and those travel to an optocouple which gets activated, and in this case this is the middle one that says power on. It's in reverse here, but you can still see. What happens is on the right side, those two pins, the right two pins receive about 1.2 volts, which energize a lightning diode, and on the other side of that optocouple is a photo transistor that when it receives the light, it basically closes like a switch to those two pins, and if before that they were open and there was a voltage on top of them, after the photocoupler is supplied with voltage here, it acts like a switch and closes, and the drop here and the voltage drops here on the output. And what we found was that there was no voltage on this side at all. when we measured the board when it came to us. And tracing the tracks to those two, they led us to this IC, which is apparently a multi-driver. We don't really need to find additional documentation. This is CXA3809M, Sony specialized IC, which apparently is responsible for the power factor correction as well as for the drive for the larger transformer. It does both of those, and it also directly produces the voltage that it expects to be shed. So naturally we suspected that this is, we checked and made sure that the IC receives proper power from the standby transformer. So the only thing that was left was to replace the IC. And this is what we did. This is the old IC, and the new one just came today. And sure enough, that solved the problem. There is now voltage on the output side of that photocoupler, and when the board is signaled, that is when the first and the third pin are shorted here, and 3.3 volts is passed to the power on, the rest of the voltages show up, and that board will be functional. We will give it to the customer to stick it in a TV. It's again a local TV repair guy, and I expect that we will not be hearing from them anymore. We will be having those ICs. You can also get them on eBay. You can get them on different places. You can get them at our website if that video helps you. Save $1 or $2. We will appreciate a quick review probably below this video. Thank you very much.